My beef with a lot of these corporate practices, I mean, I own a relief company as well. And so what they do is the CEO of these companies are businessmen, and then they have a veterinarian under them. And then they say, well, veterinary run. And it's like, wait, what? And so they recruit people on this veterinary run, but the veterinarian really has no final say in any of the decisions of the company.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. Okay, everyone, we're on a roll with super awesome guests. Today, we have Dr. Tosha Starke with us, who is amazing for a variety of reasons. She is an all-star everything, so many categories. So Dr. Starke is a veterinarian and businesswoman in Virginia who is making waves in the veterinary community through her innovative businesses and advocacy. She founded all four Paws Veterinary Relief in 2013 as a way to balance her passions of being a veterinarian and a mom. In 2021, while general practices and emergency clinics everywhere were overloaded with appointments and still hemorrhaging staff, yes, they were, Dr. Starke founded Vets to Pets mobile veterinary service to alleviate some of the strain on local clinics while also making veterinary care more accessible to her community. Dr. Starke is a co-host on the Real Talk Unleashed Veterinary podcast, which is awesome, by the way, and is dedicated to highlighting the issues in our industry and working towards meaningful change. In addition, she also mentors veterinary students at her alma mater, Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine, and serves on the board of several state veterinary associations. Welcome, Dr. Tosha. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're doing so many awesome things. And I just wanted to shout out your podcast because I listened to it and my jaw hit the ground. I was like, oh my God, we have to talk.
Absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely. The podcast was an idea that was thought about from several of our team members. And so I think it's the thing that we as a profession need to start collectively talking about. We're in all different parts of the country and the world going through the same things. And so it just gives us a platform to be able to say, you know what, that happened to me. What can we do about that to fix it? So we're very excited about the podcast for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same call. And you guys address things on almost like a more global level. And like, I love it's just like, it's really unleashed. It's like, fuck this, fuck
Absolutely.
that, this shit, that shit. Like,
Absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely. And, because sometimes that's how you feel. And when you're in a super professional setting, you can't really say it that way. So again, it's our platform that we're able to vent about the dumpster fire that is this profession right now. In an environment where we can say what we feel and understand that everybody in the room and everybody that's listening can feel it, can understand where we're coming from because a lot of them are living it.
That's
So,
exactly right. That's exactly
so,
right. So thank you for giving a voice to all of us. Thank you for that. I just really appreciate that.
for sure.
And I want to talk more about the podcast in a bit. Before I do that, I have to ask you the question. What do you eat in the car on the way
So,
to your house calls?
so I would say probably bananas is like, and I know that's so random, but my family, we love bananas, and there's always bananas in the car, no matter what house call we're going to. But the thing that I love about house calls is that, like, whatever city we're going to or whatever area, I'm always like, okay, that's the restaurant that I like over there. Like today, we hit up Insomnia Cookies and this really awesome deli called McAllister's. So I think part of the house call thing that I love is just being able to go to all the restaurants that I wouldn't otherwise go to on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's like a little treat. I definitely have a little document in my phone called Places and Cities. And now it's not a little document, it's like tremendous. And it's like,
Absolutely.
oh, when I go visit Fluffy, I get to go eat at this place.
Absolutely.
I'm so the same. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
I'm totally a foodie. Absolutely. So today I got to see Kevin, and I always know I get to go to McAllister's and I'm near Kevin's house. Kevin's not
Dang.
the best dog in the world, so I need a reason to go see him.
Yeah.
So I need some incentive. So
That's awesome. And so, like, your banana thing, is it always, like, regular bananas? Is it dried bananas? Is it, like, chocolate covered
um,
banana?
I'm a regular banana, but it's got to be really green. You have to be able to break into the banana. Like I don't want the ones that peel very easily. I know that's so weird, but I'm the person that goes into the store and buys the super green bananas. I don't know where that came from, but once it's young, I don't even want it. Then my kids and my husband eat those.
That's hilarious. Well, I mean, you're a banana connoisseur, so you will have to
Yes,
have.
has to have the perfect amount of green. Absolutely.
And I mean, because bananas, like, there's such a spectrum of, like, what a banana is and what a banana isn't,
Absolutely.
and you can get that wrong.
And so wrong. It's so funny. I was in the grocery store one day. My husband was with me. I was grabbing coffee really quick and I said, can you go grab me a banana? And I gave him such unique specifications. A lady looked at me and she goes, you're really hard to please. And she just didn't understand.
That's really funny. Hilarious. So, can you tell me a little bit more about how you became a house call vet and what your journey was like? And, if I'm correct, I think you started with house call practice around a year ago. Is that right?
Yeah, 2021. So it was actually my neighbor's idea. So we live in
Oh,
a community that has 3,000 homeowners, and it's a huge community with dogs. And so during the pandemic, veterinary care was not very accessible. So a lot of my neighbors, I was taking care of their dogs just kind of on a, okay, let me see if I could get you some Clavamox from here or that sort of thing, kind of putting it together, but just trying to help them when they couldn't get into their regular veterinarian. So I always say when I moved here about 3 years ago, and my previous house, I lived in that home for 15 years. I never told anybody I was a vet. It's like, the secret that I kept very safe. When we
yeah.
built this home and moved here, our realtor was friends with several of our neighbors. So she let the cat out of the bag. So the cat was out of the bag, but my neighbors, I love the fact that they're very respectful of my time. We have boundaries, but this all started just taking care of their dogs. And they said to me one day, there's so many dogs in the neighborhood. We love the fact that you come in our home, our dogs are less stressed out. We don't have to leave. We can continue working on our working from home. And they said, why don't you just do this for the neighborhood? And so we did just that. And so here we are. I mean, our business is growing. I'm actually, thinking about transitioning this to like a small brick and mortar with the house call business for advanced diagnostics, that sort of thing, because there definitely is a need for it. I was just reading an article yesterday that talked about in the next 8 years, there's going to be even more of a shortage in veterinary medicine for veterinarians. And so I feel like this also allows me to kind of do things on my terms. I have small kids. I can go pick one up from school. Like yesterday, I was finishing up a house call. I got a call from one kid that he missed the bus. I ran over, could pick him up, could finish up dropping him off, and then go to the next house call. So it allows me also to be able to balance, being a mom, being a veterinarian, and the other businesses that I run. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm always really interested in people's stories about balancing parenthood with entrepreneurship. Can you tell me a little bit about that in your
I
experience?
drink a lot. I do drink a lot. I kind of not drink too much, but doing both does require some alcohol. So we'll leave it at that. It definitely is a daily challenge and balance. I'm grateful that my kids are a little bit older now and a little bit more self sufficient. I'll have to say it's gangster when you have small kids and you're a working mom. Number one, we're not in a profession that appreciates motherhood, even
Which
though
is
we are.
odd because, right.
Yeah, even though we're a profession that's mostly women, I mean, one of the things that you still can see is that we're not in a lot of leadership positions. So we're really not in a position to bring about the change that we need, which is definitely one of the things that we're going to address on the podcast, just women in leadership and how do we, not only sit at the table, but be in charge of making the decisions for our profession that is mostly, run by women. But we're in a profession that is not very kid friendly, not very family friendly. And so it has been a balance. It's required me to leave jobs that I did like because it wasn't conducive to me being a mom. And so out of that actually started my bid fire. My dogs are scratching at the door. Give me one. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no
They're not
problem.
gonna. I'm sorry.
That's the life of a
I
vet.
know,
Right?
right? Being a dog mom, it's also tough.
It
Oh
is.
my God. All right, guys. I'm quiet here. We're trying to conduct some business here.
That's right. We're trying to conduct some business.
Awesome. So out of, being just trying to struggle motherhood and being a veterinarian is why I became an entrepreneur. My last job that I worked at, I was pregnant with my daughter. They actually fired me while I was 8.5 months pregnant. Left for pregnancy discrimination. And it's actually a company that's very prominent right now. And so out of that, I said to myself that I would never work for another company ever again. And I said, I'm going to put my trust in myself. And that's when I started my relief service. Then in 2013 until now, I haven't looked back.
Brava. Damn. I'm so happy that was what you took from that experience. I mean,
Absolutely.
and those were the actions that you took in response. Brava.
Absolutely. Not very many people would have had the balls to sue a
No.
company that my husband is an attorney turned judge. He's the judge now. He was the attorney. And so everybody kept saying, do they know your husband's an attorney? And I'm like, well, they do now. So, part of why I've sued them was because I know that not everybody has the resources or the energy to do what I did. And it was a lot. It was a 3-year fight.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I can't discuss the outcome, but it was a lot. But I did it for future generations and for other women who can't fight the same fight.
I'm so inspired and so impressed. Thank you for that. I think a lot of the time we have to do what we can do, not just for ourselves, but for almost a movement. It's a movement that you and I are engaged in our own ways, of course.
Absolutely.
And, I can't agree more with the fact that our profession is like anywhere from like 70 to 90% dominated, but in our leadership, where are the women? Where are they? And where's the change has to come from
The top.
from the constituents, right? Yet we're not in those positions.
Absolutely.
And so I hear you and I feel you so clearly and so strongly that we need to step up and we need to be there. We need to create the space for other women to
Correct.
to create what it is we want out of this dumpster fire.
Definitely a dumpster fire. No doubt there.
Yeah, I was in a position once where I was considering a lawsuit and I didn't have the balls or the money or the attorney judge husband, but I
Yes.
swear
That's
if
something handy.
like your I don't know what the outcome is, like you said, but
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, that's a victory. Just
A good one. It was a good outcome. For
oh,
sure.
good. I have no doubt, and I think your victory is my victory, and I think that's a victory
Right.
for all of
For
us.
sure.
So
We
I'm
have to
just
live
like,
the rides for sure.
that's right, that's right. I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Sorry for the snorting French bulldog.
No, it's no, please, let's have a little bit more of the snorting French bulldog. Oh, there he is.
That's Bruce. He's bow tie.
Bruce, what a cutie. Oh my
Bruce
god.
Willis.
Look at that
He's
bow tie. He's so cute.
he's adorable. He's a stinker.
Yeah. So, you are an interesting guest on this show, as I mentioned, because you also have a podcast with 2 other women that you collaborate with. And we're going to have like a little podcast takeover where all of you guys come on
Good.
my podcast and vice versa. So, that's coming. Stay tuned, everyone. And I've been following, your journey in house call Vetland kind of for a while now, and then heard some of your podcast episodes for Real Talk Unleashed. And then I was like, that's it. I have I have to reach out to her, like, right this second or, like,
I
friends with her, something. Like, I was like, "It's
this is
time.
awful.
It's time." Like, your tagline is, like I have it written down here, "A real ass veterinary podcast for real ass veterinary professionals. No sugarcoating, no bullshit.
And we
Just
don't
real
at
talk."
all. We don't. And
No.
we almost like before we record an episode, we like pump each other up. If we're going, because we know that this profession, I mean, I've worked with Michelle, I've known her and Caitlin, they're mother and daughter, and
Mhm.
I've worked with them for many years. And so we've grown and grown in this profession. And I think one day we just were like, what the fuck is happening? I mean, like everybody that we talked to was saying the same thing. And
Yep.
so, I'm excited to be able to, to talk a little bit about the podcast and just, share it with other people. We're actually in 29 countries now, the podcast, which is like unreal.
That
We're
is
very
yeah.
excited. We're very excited that, I mean, I'm kind of sad that this is going on all over the world, but excited that we're able to reach people, where they are, no matter where in the world.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that on a global level, a lot of these issues that you guys talk about and that, I've been talking about too, it's
Yeah.
crazy that it's a really a global thing. And
So,
specifically, I wanted to delve into an episode that I heard, which was the first of course, I saw this episode, and that's when I listened to first, and I was like, "What is this?"
forever.
It was like, you had this episode that was called "Putting Out the Corporate Veterinary Dumpster Fire." It was such a good episode, and I was like, "Oh, okay, there's a" yeah. And the thing is, like, globally, corporatization of veterinary medicine is happening. It's not just in
Yeah.
the US. So that is something that's influencing this dumpster fire. Just
And one of the things that I think is very unique, and I wish that our profession would fight for the legislation. My husband, as an attorney, when he owned a law firm, I could not own any part of his business because I'm not an attorney. And
Mhm.
so they have it so that no one can come into their profession and rape and pillage like we've allowed in our profession. And so I think it may be too late. The horses already got out of the stable. No need to close the door now. But I wonder if that's ever something. I don't know if the corporations that already own would be grandfathered in but I'm going to talk to the Virginia Veterinary Medical Association about proposing the legislation that we need to look at who has interest and who owns in our profession. Because unfortunately, if money is the only factor, we're going to be chewed up and spit out just like we are right now. I mean, really, no one ever asked me. I worked for multiple corporations. No one ever asked me about patient outcome. They
Right.
were worried about the bottom line.
That's it.
And so unfortunately, a lot of us go into this profession for very different reasons. And it's just changing the culture so much that, they say, well, we're graduating more veterinarians, but we still don't have enough. It's because they're leaving in record numbers. I talked to new graduates who are burned out after a year of
Yeah.
being in this profession.
Yep.
We're a lot of people are retiring. We can't graduate people enough to keep up with with how fast people are leaving the profession. And
Yeah,
corporate medicine has a lot to do with that.
I think so too. And I mean, I love what you said about the fact that, I feel that same way too. Like our profession's being raped and pillaged
Great
by
knowledge.
Wall Street, by, private equity, by folks who, techie folks who are like,
Yes.
"Oh, we have an idea. I'll make some money off of these vets." And especially it drives me up the freaking wall when people come into the house call vet space. That's sacred to me. I'm
Crazy.
sorry.
I see people like commenting because I get a call at least once a week from someone trying to buy my house. I'm like, I just started the practice the other day. Like, what gives you? Oh, okay. Let me work for you and work twice as hard to make half the money. I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
Right?
I
I
don't
mean,
know if anyone is no to them.
that's right. It's all these middlemen who think they're so smart. "Oh, we'll make the Uber of house call vets. We'll cash in on this." And you see, I had my experience with them, and I had I'm not going to name names on
Of course
air,
not.
but I made a huge mistake before I
Mhm.
started my own house call practice, and I was going to be the first house call vet for what turned out to be a big corporate, like private equity type of, it's techie people starting it. And
Like,
I didn't know any better because I wasn't a house call vet at that point. I didn't know what it was all about.
sure,
I just
sure.
knew I wanted to do house call medicine. I didn't know how, and they gave me the platform to do
Mm,
it. I didn't know. So, I got really
sure.
badly taken advantage of, but I was being taken out to a coffee shop to pick my brain. That was my payment. A cup of coffee.
Wow.
And, it was just really,
I'm
and
sorry, they didn't buy the coffee shop where you payment, just a
yeah,
cup of coffee.
no, the
Wow.
uh, a cup of coffee. And the moment I realized I was being screwed
Oh
was
my
I was
goodness.
having a conversation with this gentleman, telling him about, how important safety is in the home.
Mhm.
He's
Mhm.
not a vet, he didn't understand, and he was blowing me off, and right next to us, there's a family with a little dog, and the dog comes up to him, and he ignores the dog, and I'm like, "You don't even care about you don't
Oh,
even like animals. Oh my god, where am I? This has to
well, it's
end."
money. They money, they don't care. My husband said to me one day, he said, when I worked for a company that shall remain unnamed, and he said, "If you euthanized every dog that came in the door versus saved it, they wouldn't care if you made more money." And that's really the truth. And I think that's when it really hit me that I can't do corporate medicine.
And there are, companies that do exactly that. They like you to euthanize every like, that's their goal. I think you know who I'm talking about, but,
Mhm. Wow.
um, quotas for euthanasia, I can't.
That's unreal. That's absolutely unreal. Unreal. And so, and I remember just having to answer to people who weren't veterinarians, who had no veterinary training.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. I mean, it's offensive at least, you
Yeah, at a
know?
minimum, it's offensive.
Absolutely. And they're telling you, I remember, one of the company managers saying, this is how you get a dog out of the cage that's aggressive. And I said, here, you take your spiel on how you get that aggressive dog out of the cage. And I want you to get that dog right there out of the cage with that protocol. They just don't have any practicality or any real life experience. And I think that that's contributing to a profession that is dissolving. It's really dissolving.
It's really dissolving. I mean, yeah, you bring up so many good points, and I think it's so important for people to hear your words and your experiences. And, these companies, just thinking back about these folks who, fired you at 8 months pregnant. Jesus. I mean, I can only imagine what huge corporate company it was and how much money they have, and that they were willing to take the risk because they're just so powerful that it didn't,
Sure.
they felt it probably wouldn't touch them. They
Sure.
need resources to steamroll any one of us at any
Yeah.
moment.
And not to just, jump on their heads, but that same company, my husband and I had lost a pregnancy the previous year. I was the medical director there. So, I never missed a day while I was, working. And I got a call from the COO of the company after we lost our child. And he said, I was just calling to see if you were still up for the job. And so
Wow.
I couldn't even, I, my husband heard the conversation. It's the only way that I can prove that someone could be that just mean and just it's unreal. My husband said, "Did he just say what I thought he just said?" Because I'm thinking I'm going through the grief, but I'm just like, maybe I didn't hear that. My husband said, "I can't believe that he would literally call you while you're on medical leave to see if you're still up for your job." These are the people that are taking over our profession.
Yeah, and I mean, I think our profession is really different and special. We do work out of love. We do work out of
Absolutely.
care, connection, passion. We are
Absolutely.
highly educated, deeply compassionate people, and this is not the industry to fuck with by trying
Absolutely.
to make money off our backs. Sure, if you wanna start a business selling shirts, or you wanna
Sure.
start a business I mean, hey, even I'm not a fan of Uber, but if you wanna start a business selling rides, fine.
Sure.
There's no
Sure.
emotion in that. There's no
Right.
passion, there's no soul connection. Being a vet is
Sure.
not just it's not just anything else. It's not any other industry. It's really special,
Sure.
unique, very different from any other, you know?
And, one of the things that frustrates me with our profession, though, is how do we convince, you and we have strong personalities. We will stand up for ourselves, but there's so many of us that don't stand up for themselves. How do we get everybody on this page of, we talked about things like veterinary unions and you talked about other ideas, but so many of us will go on Facebook and go on platforms to complain. But why don't more people advocate harder for change? I don't know the answer to that. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that people are truly afraid. Um,
Mm.
I'm afraid too. I'm gonna be honest. I am. But we were talking about this before we started recording. We were both talking about when you hit 40, the
Oh, absolutely.
give a fuck button seems to break.
And and maybe at one point in my career, I may have been afraid. I'm not afraid anymore. It's like you can't beat me, so they might as well join me. Like, and so that's maybe hearing my voice and your voice, maybe more people will say, well, what the fuck are we afraid of? That they're going to
That's
fire
great.
us and have to wait 4 more years to get another veterinarian? I'm always amazed at people that are on there. They're like, treating me like this, they're doing this to me. And I'm just like, why are you still there? And
Yeah.
so, maybe us saying that we no fucks given, here, um, maybe that'll give other people the courage to stand up for themselves because, literally the charade will be over if they just stand up for themselves. The game is
Yeah.
over.
Yep, yep, yep. I love that. I do very much feel almost as a duty that if I don't, I have I guess, a strong personality, or I have the no fucks given checkbox that
Right.
it's kind of on my team right now, my
Absolutely.
personal self team. But I feel almost a duty to use my platform to share these ideas. And I see you're doing the same. And I think this conversation, I know that whenever on my podcast people talk about corporate and what's been done to them via corporate, I get so much positive feedback because people are hearing the things come out of my mouth and your mouth that they won't have the balls yet to say. And I think in some cases you need to have been burned severely before your fucks fly out the window.
Sure.
Some people are just like a low level burn. They're like the lobster in the pot that they don't realize how bad they're burning. I don't know,
Sure.
did you even say that? You might have even said that in your podcast, "The Lobster in the Pot." I don't know, but
Frog. I
the
think we
frog, you said the frog.
Mhm.
It's
For
like, "Oh,
sure.
I
For
like
sure.
frogs, we'll make it a lobster." But,
Absolutely. I like lobster too. Yeah, let's go with lobster.
yeah, yeah. But,
But
I mean, it's like, when I heard that, I was like, I see that image. I've seen that image for years in my head with our profession. People low level burn
Mm,
until they don't realize what they've lost. They don't
right.
realize what their power is. And
Mm,
they're being, I know the word is being overused at this point, but
mhm.
gaslit. They're being
Oh,
told
absolutely.
they're being
Abso-fucking-lutely. I mean,
yeah, they're being told from above, people who don't understand the profession, that they're not good enough, that they're not worth it, that being a good vet means bringing this amount of money in, that being a good vet means
everything that comes in the door.
getting everything that comes. They're conflating what it means to be a good vet with what it means to bring money in for them.
It's right.
And since the day I graduated and I did my internship, that's the message I've been getting too.
Same.
This is
Same.
a decade ago, a little over a decade ago, that was
Mm,
infiltrated right even in vet school. Even in vet school, the corporate practices were giving us lunch talks.
hmm.
Even in
Right.
vet school, so that messaging of what it means to be a good vet was
Sure,
confused
sure.
in my head, and we have to break free of that.
Do you feel like vet schools? Because, I still mentor. So I was recently at Virginia Tech doing the mentor day, and literally the whole conference was bought and sold by corporations. And do you feel like the vet school should not allow these corporations into their schools?
I think you've answered the question. I think it's maddening. There are corporations that are every conference,
Every single thing.
every
And I'm not trying to
conference.
explain, but who allowed Blue Buffalo? I don't understand how they get to come to conferences. Like, literally, I'm just like, I'm sorry. Aren't we mad at them? Like, I don't understand. And I know we're not supposed to be saying company names, but that's the elephant in the room. Like why do we
It's
allow
the buffalo
companies?
in the room.
There's literally a buffalo in the room. I mean, this is a company that has literally shitted on veterinary medicine and made pet owners believe that we don't know anything about nutrition. And, that their person who, got a wild hair of his ass and started a pet food company and sold it for $8 billion knows more about nutrition than we do. Why do we allow these people to come into our spaces and use our spaces as their platform? I just don't get it.
It makes me so angry. I'm so glad you mentioned this because, I mean, when we talk about corporate sponsorship in school and we talk about corporate sponsorship in our continuing education that
Right.
we're required to do in order to maintain
Um,
our licenses, they have us by the neck. They have us, we're a captive
for sure.
audience. Our very education cannot be separated from the agenda and the, motivation of these
Absolutely.
companies.
Your financial
Yep.
motivation. Right.
The financial motivation to recruit, to make us know in their mind what a good vet is. Like, they literally have a definition that they put into our heads early on of what it means to be
Right.
good.
Absolutely. You're
Literally.
right.
I thought that being a good vet meant being able to see as many cases as possible. I thought that was part of what it meant to be a good doctor. No, no, it's not.
Well, it's absolutely wild. Wild. So what made you, and I know that this is your podcast, but what made you seek an alternative to clinical practice?
Oh man, I mean, as I alluded to before, I got burnt so badly on a number of levels that I couldn't proceed anymore.
Okay.
A variety of corporate experiences, or, the definition of corporate is kind of vague, right? But the way I use it is
Sure.
by saying there's an interest outside of a veterinarian. There's someone who's
Right.
not a vet probably who owns the whole show, and
Right.
there are a lot of middlemen, and it's a big endeavor, and they're putting pressure on the vets to do things other than, what we believe in our hearts to be right.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
A big and I think the bigness of it is what makes something, quote unquote corporate in my mind. 'Cause
Right.
literally a
Right.
lot of us solo house call vets are LLCs, which is
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
corporation, but that's a technical term rather than a cultural,
Yeah. For sure. Absolutely. My beef with a lot of these corporate practices, I mean, I own a relief company as well. And so what they do is the CEO of these companies are businessmen, and then they have a veterinarian under them. And then they say, well, veterinary run. And it's like, wait, what? And so they recruit people on this veterinary run, but the veterinarian really has no final say in any of the decisions of the company. That's something else that they're doing that, people will come to me and try to compare me to them. And I'm like, I'm not the same as they are. They are run by a CEO that's not a veterinarian who literally has found some token veterinarians to literally, be there to recruit you. And we're just not the same.
right? I've
So,
heard of that. It's so very, very different when a vet is not running the show
right.
completely and utterly. There are interests outside of ours, outside of the animals. There's just things that don't belong there. I'll put it that way.
For sure. And you can tell very quickly when you're talking to some of these companies who they're being run by. It'll be evident very quickly that that it's not run by a veterinarian if that's the case.
Right. Yeah, and you definitely have these sort of talking heads that they have to be the face of the thing when they're really either absent or their role is pretty, they're kind of handcuffed themselves,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been the head, the talking head at
Mhm.
several companies. So I mean, there you have it. I'm guilty as charged.
Same,
Ah,
same. Yeah, I had to learn that the hard way myself. So I think some of those toxic experiences and finding myself being used and
mm,
clearly being used and not for the
sure.
right reasons. It was palpable. The moment I saw that guy ignore the dog, like cute little dog in the coffee shop, he didn't even
Like what
give.
vent did ignore that?
Yeah, and that he didn't give that dog the time of day. Like, not even a hello, not a look, not a, "Hi, cutie," or like a little pet like any of us would have done. The dog came up to him,
Absolutely.
literally sniffing him, and I was like, "Dear God, this is not."
Unreal.
Yeah, and at the
Did you
same
move
time,
forward
so
with that
very
company?
real, right? What's that?
Right. Did you move forward with that company with their platform or
For a very short time, and then I left them, and you'll be happy to know they were sued out of business for other reasons anyway.
so awesome. Winning. Awesome.
Hashtag winning.
Absolutely. Winning.
Yeah,
So
but, like, some of these painful experiences, I had the same kind of transition moment that you had. I have to do this myself. No one's gonna own me. No one's gonna
sure.
own me. And I mean, some of it was, like, specifically the corporate mindset that was harmful to me. Some of it was just individual personalities within that infrastructure, and some of it was just, "I have a vision, damn it. I'm doing this," you
Absolutely.
know?
For sure. Sure. Like I said, but I mean, yeah, I don't know if you ever heard the phrase the dream spree but the hustle sold separately. And so, so I mean, I had the dream and the hustle. And I said, I'm gonna do this for me. And sound like our stories are very similar on why we're here.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's gonna be the name of this episode. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately.
Love it.
I love
That's
it too. I just wrote that down. I was like, "Oh, ding, 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 ding."
loving it. I say that to my kids all the time. They're like, Mom, I'm tired. I don't want to go today. And I'm like, we have to do this. The dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. And
No,
it's
I
so
think it's so funny. And I think at the same time, to answer your other question, why don't people speak up against it? Because people are afraid of that hustle and they
mm,
want the paycheck, they want the sign-on bonus. They're seduced. Folks in corporate and these big conglomerates, they
sure.
use all the buzzwords, work-life balance. They know our love language and they know our pain language, and they work
Yeah.
hard to learn that. They
Mm,
don't know no. They know the
right.
words to say, they know the lip service. They
Yeah.
know we need to be paid more than we are, and that's an ongoing
Sure.
struggle. They make those
Sure.
promises, but, that there's a lot of bait and switch. There's a lot
Yeah.
of not not what it seems, and
Sure.
I think a lot of people get caught between a rock and a hard place, like, they're struggling
Yeah.
financially. This big company's giving me a huge sign-on bonus. Oh my god, I can take care of my family. Like, that's real, and I
They
feel
with them, but we kind of say this is what we say on our team. We say, yeah, you get a sign-on bonus or a retention bonus, but it comes with the D and B. It comes with the dick and balls, and we say that a lot, unfortunately. But that's kind of our phrase. You'll probably hear us say it during the podcast.
oh
But the
god.
sign-on bonuses come with a big serving of D and B. Yes, and well, how do vets, and how many times do I look on Not One More Vet or other Facebook, things where vets have taken the sign-on bonuses and now they're miserable or they're trying to leave. It's like the piece of cheese on the mousetrap. Like it's going to catch you sooner or later. Like, why don't we get that?
Because
Because we're
yes.
already hustling.
Yeah.
That's you said, vets maybe not they're not ready to hustle. But in these hospitals where you're seeing 30 patients a day, you're already hustling. Yes. So maybe they're just afraid of change.
So smart. That's it. I mean, that's it. It's a fear of change. It's a fear of something outside of status quo. I think that's what it is. And I think the illusion is that they can't walk away from the money. They can't walk away. They can't. But the reality is it's a fear of change. People don't real like they're afraid of being the frog that jumps out of the boiling pot into the frying pan. But the reality is they're jumping out of the pot to like greener pastures. They don't know they can't see outside that pot.
Sure, sure. And it is scary. I remember when I left the last job and I was pregnant at the time. So I had my daughter early. She came 5 weeks early after the stress of being fired for no reason. So I just remember saying, I would rather live in a tent with my kids than go back to that life. And maybe, like you said, maybe people have to really hit rock bottom before I literally said I would live in the car with my children and my husband before I would go back. And so maybe have to really hit that point to be able to want something better.
That's a really good point, and I think, it's a terrible thing, but I think we are, as a profession, hitting that point,
We're there. We're
one
absolutely there.
one at a time, we're hitting that wall, and some of us just have to be burnt badly enough to see it.
It's unreal. It's unreal. I just,
It is.
and some days I can't even really think about it. Like yesterday, I was at a client's house and people just think that we should eat, read just all day veterinary medicine. And I said to her, my hobby is gardening. And she goes, well, you're a veterinarian. That should be your hobby. I guess I thought a hobby was something you do if you hit the lottery and you had $1 billion. Would I still be a veterinarian? Probably not, but I would still garden. So yeah,
There you go. There you
she
go.
really was just dumbfounded that I just didn't think that I wasn't having a fucking great time crawling around on my knees behind her dog for 20 minutes. So I just people have this fantasy vision. When I tell people we have the highest suicide rate in any profession, how many people have you told? And they're like, "Really?"
Yeah.
They're shocked. And we're over here like literally begging for help.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't even know.
They
We
don't.
have a client code of conduct because one of the things that I said when I start my house call practice, we are going to pick our clients and we have the most delightful, pleasant clients. I will fire a client in a New York minute. I don't have time for the BS. I need the team to be treated. I'm amazed at how many tips we even get just, with the service we provide. But we have a client code of conduct. I wish more places and practices would do that. We say, if you post one thing about us on social media that's negative, you are not our client. If you talk to our staff, like we have to, if you don't set boundaries with people, they'll set them for you. And as a profession, we don't do that enough. It's unreal.
Sure don't. We sure don't. And that's one of my deep, deep passions, that letting vets know we don't have to tolerate this. We don't have to. I mean, we can't control anyone else's behavior. There's a saying that's like, we can't control the people around us, but we can control the people around us.
Absolutely.
Like, we can't control them, but we can decide who of them get to be around us.
Absolutely. That's
And I think
exactly
that
right.
is the primary, in my book, the primary benefit of being a house call vet, that everything is
Absolutely.
on your terms. It is boundary central to be a house call vet. You just have to know that it's okay to set them and how to do that.
That's for
People,
sure.
don't realize they're like, I can do that. I can fire clients. I can choose what clients I want. Yes.
What sometimes people worry that if I turn a client away, I'm not going to make any money or I'm going to lose
Right.
out on money. Those people aren't going to pay you any money anyway. I feel like the people that complain, they waste the most of your time and they spend the least amount of money. So those are not the people that I want to be my clientele anyway. And you just got to be willing to not take everybody as a client, you know?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's another one of those illusions that if I don't take everyone, I'll have no one. And it's not true. And just like you said, the folks that are a problem, they're gonna take all your energy and give you none of their energy. You know, what's
Yes.
the point?
That's
Right?
it.
I'm curious actually to hear your perspective on this. A lot of the time, guilt that people experience, like my students in the House Call Vet Academy, we talk constantly about this, about the guilt of the animal that we are walking away from. That poor
Mhm.
animal has this terrible owner who just doesn't,
Sure.
and we have to walk away for our own sanity. And we talk about
Yeah.
guilt all the time. How do you handle that guilt, or do you face that guilt?
So, I mean, and I imagine that I still do have sympathy for the animal. I don't have guilt about it because I really believe that you can't care more for the animal than the client does. And I take that to heart. I did a talk at Virginia Tech. They do the white coat ceremony. They invited me down to do like a talk. And so I did a list of 10 survival tips in the veterinary profession. And one of the tips that I said is that you are an advocate for that pet that's in front of you, but you can't care more about them than the client does. And what I do in those cases is that I advocate for that animal as hard as I can to that client. So I don't have any guilt on me for my advocacy because I've done my job. The other part, choosing what path we go down and providing financial resources to back that is on the client.
Bravo. Really well said. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I feel sorry for the animals? Oh, hell yeah. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
like, poor Fluffy. I mean, I do feel sorry for them, but I know that I've done my job, as an advocate for them. I had a dog with a big tumor on its head that I saw some months ago. And the client said, I wanted you to do a meet and greet and a hospice visit before we euthanized her. She never called me back. And I mean, I advocated hard as hell for that dog to be euthanized. I mean, I all but said, like, I'm about to call animal control on you. I mean, it was that bad. And I think about that dog from time to time, but I know that there's no doubt in my mind that I didn't give the owner every example of why having a tumor coming out of your skull is painful and what that feels like and what are the signs of her not wanting, not doing well. I advocated for her, but then it's up to the owner to make the decision. I can't feel guilty for something I can't even control.
I love that. I think part of the thing that helps me as well that I'm hearing in what you're saying is sticking with your integrity, doing at all times what you believe to be right within the realm of what you actually have control over.
Absolutely. I commonly will say to clients, the times I'll deliver information that they don't want to hear. And I'll say to them, one of the lines that I use very commonly is that my job is to advocate for your dog or your cat. And when I say that, it's almost like they think about me as not being the enemy anymore
Mhm.
because they don't want to hear that their dog is, needs to be euthanized. But when I say that, it's almost like they let down a guard. And then they say, "Well, I know you're here to advocate for them." But I can't even tell you how many times I've seen them just react to me differently after they understand that this is what I'm here for. I'm not here to fight you about Fluffy. I'm here to help Fluffy. I'm giving you the signs that Fluffy can't verbalize through my medical training.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah,
really beautiful. It takes their impression of you as a gatekeeper or you as an ego
yes,
out of it. It makes
absolutely.
you into a conduit, basically.
Absolutely.
And
That's my phrase.
and
If I can say one thing that I say the most, that's probably it.
oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's gonna help a lot of people to hear that. I love it. It's awesome. All right, my dear. So we could talk for hours and hours, and
I know we gotta go.
I look forward to continuing this conversation on your
Same.
podcast with your crew, and I know we'll get maybe even more spicy on your show. So
Irons will be unleashed for sure.
I can unleash. So
Absolutely. And I appreciate all your advocacy. I see you on on a lot of the Facebook pages and just advocating for people, just telling them, hey, you don't have to put up with this. Because like you said, I mean, we're the ones, I call us like the OGs in the profession. Like we're the ones that have been around. I'm going on almost 20 years in this profession. So, I feel like, we are now the people that, new grads are looking up to, which is kind of like a little scary at the same time. I appreciate you advocating for people because everybody doesn't have the courage or the balls to do what we do and say what we say. So, you continue to just be that person that can help to hopefully bring some meaningful change to this profession. We need it.
Thank you for that. I'm so happy that we're, collaborating and talking and, so many future conversations on this subject and beyond to come.
Absolutely.
And just
Yeah.
before we close up shop, can I ask your favorite beverage? I know you mentioned you like to
Mm,
drink booze. Do you have a
yeah.
favorite beverage since we're in the
So,
House Call Vet Cafe?
yeah. So my favorite beverage, I would say, is my morning coffee. It's usually a triple shot of espresso, caramel macchiato, extra hot, with light drizzle and light syrup. Well, that's usually
Oh,
my Monday through Thursday favorite beverage. And the first sip of it just wakes up my soul. My Friday beverage, because the weeks are very long, is usually a quad shot. And I brought so today with the quad shot because there's lots to be done in this profession. So I need a little Starbucks to help me out.
oh my God, that's hilarious. That explains everything. I'm like, how do you do all these things? I understand now. Okay, it's
Well,
the Friday tap off.
but the real way that I do as many things as I do is I have an amazing team. And I'm going to tell you, without Michelle, without Caitlin, without Morgan, I mean, they literally, we literally, our tag. So when we call each other, it's TB. And we literally stand for taking care of business because they literally are the dream team for sure. And that's how I'm able to do so many things and be successful. It's all because of them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So thank you so much for having me on.
Fantastic. Looking forward to our future conversations.
Same here. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.
If you're looking for help with ultrasound scanning, check out First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound for independent machine reviews and online and in-person teaching options. FOVU, simplifying ultrasound.